Welcome to this instructional video on the security features of PDR Professional. And as we do with most videos, we will use the test database for demonstration purposes. So the first thing I do will be select registry, test registry. I'll log on as system and log on. Okay. Now within the PDR Professional system, security is implemented using roles. And we can see from the bottom here that when you log on, the username is displayed down the bottom, and in this case the username is system. But it's telling us here that the user system has associated with him or her the role admin. Okay, and that is dictated through the users tab up here. If we edit a user, and let's say we edit system, we can see that the user system has the role admin associated with him. And by default, the system, when you install the system, there are three roles: a user, viewer and an admin role. Okay, and obviously system is like the administrator of the system, so he will have the admin role, and we'll see what that is in a moment. But other people may be just a plain user with restricted privileges and they would have the user role, or you may just have someone who's got read-only access to the system and you would give them the viewer role. And we'll see how they operate in a moment. Okay, so up here we have the security tab, and the security tab allows us to add new roles, maintain existing roles, to reset roles, and to maintain classification profiles and access caveat profiles. I'm going to explain what those are in a moment. So the first thing we'll do is look at maintain roles. On the maintain roles screen at the top, we can see the roles drop down, and by default admin is shown. Okay, now we can see that the admin role has all of these privileges associated with it. Okay, there are no privileges in the system that the admin role does not have, and you would expect that. You'd expect the admin user to have all of the privileges within the system. However, if we were to pick a viewer role, we can see that these available keys, i.e. these are the privileges that the viewer role does not have associated with it, i.e. they are available to the role but they're not associated with the role. And these keys here are the assigned keys, and these are the privileges that are associated with the role. So as a viewer, you wouldn't expect the viewer role, for instance, to be able to delete a role, or delete a user, or close a document, or you might not be able to add a user, okay, because you are a viewer. So therefore you would typically only be able to view information. So you can view the configuration, you can view the settings, you can view users, but you can't delete anything. But you can, for instance, run statistics, and you can do reports, and you can do things like that, which isn't really updating any information within the registry. So you're purely a viewer. Okay, so those are the roles. And if we say for a user we edit a user, let's look at Robbins for instance. Robbins has the user role, and also his classification access profile means that he can only see confidential and below information, and we'll see that in a moment. Okay, I want to pick somebody that is a viewer, has a viewer role. So if we go to view user, this shows us here what role the user has. So Smith is a viewer, we can see there Smith has the viewer role. So if I now select, if I actually log on to the test registry as Smith, we will see that Smith down here has the viewer role. So we can see down here the role is shown that he's got viewer, and we can see that he's very limited on what he can do. Okay, he cannot, for instance, add, delete or edit users. He can't add, edit, delete documents. He can only view documents. Okay, he can view destruction details, he can view settings. He's not able to edit settings. Okay, so it's quite restrictive on what Smith can do, and it's all controlled through the role. Okay, so if we select back on as system is the default username and the default password. When the system's installed, that's how it's set up initially, and we'll log on. and then we get all the privileges back this time, because we now can add, edit and delete users, because the system user has got the admin role. Now regarding the default password, if we go to configuration and we edit the configuration and we edit all the configuration, there's an item down here called default password that is set to system. Now you can change that to something else if you want to. And down here the default username is also set to system. So the logon screen by default will be filled in with these two value, username and password, you know, to save you typing it in for testing purposes or whatever. I mean, you may wish to leave those blank, and if you leave those blank, then when you log in each time, that screen, when it comes up, the logon screen will not have any data in the username or the password field, and you'll have to fill it in. But for our purposes, for demonstrations and stuff, we'll leave system set as it is, and we don't want to make any changes because we didn't make any changes. Okay, so that's how the security works within the system. I want to show you now the access profiles in action. And if we go to view a user, again we can see here that Robbins is a user, which means he's more than a viewer, which means he can update certain things, and he's got more than read-only privileges, but he's not got all the privileges associated with the admin role. But what he does have is classification access profile is set to confidential and below. So we need to see what that is. Okay, so we go to security and we go to maintain classification profiles. A similar screen comes up here, and these are the classification access profiles that are preset in the system at the top, and you can add to these, you can create new ones, delete old ones, you can modify what's there. It's completely flexible and completely up to you. So confidential and below, this profile says that the keys assigned to this access profile are confidential, restricted and unclassified. So it means that only these values within each document will be visible to the person who has this role associated with him, or profile should I say. So he won't be able to see secret information, it will be unavailable. If we pick secret and below, then obviously all these become available. Okay. If we look at restricted and below, then he can see unclassified and restricted, and if we go unclassified only, he can only see unclassified. And these access profiles can be associated with users, and you can change them as you wish. Okay, so if we look at the one that's confidential and below, he cannot see secret information. So just to refresh how we find out who's got what, we go to view user, the user Robbins, confidential and below is what you can see. Okay, bear that in mind because we're going to do a test now. Now in order for the access profiles to be active, we have to go into the settings and edit settings file, and here we have to enable access profiles, because by default they're all switched off, which means that everybody can see everything. Okay, which is the default setting, but we're going to enable the access profiles now, which means that they will be active, and we'll update that and we'll save that. Okay, and just to refresh once more, it's the user Robbins, confidential and below. So I will now select the registry test, I will log in as Robbins and I'll log on. Okay, and we can see here that Robbins has been associated the user role, and his access profile is set to confidential and below. So if I go to view documents now and I find everything, you see in this list I'm only seeing everything confidential and below. I'm not seeing any secret information at all in this list. It's all been completely filtered out. Okay, so it's a nice way of preventing users seeing the documents you don't want them to see. So that's quite useful in that respect, and I can just prove that if I go to secret. Now we know there's secret documents in there, and if I find them, no records found. Okay, because this user has an access profile that is active. Okay, Robbins. Now if I go back to the test registry and log on as system, and I switch off, go to edit settings, and I disable the access profiles and I save them. Okay, if I now was to log on as Smith again, okay, bearing in mind now his access profiles have been disabled. If I log on as Smith, I now go to Documents, View Documents, find them. I can now see secret information. Okay, so let's just check that I was, well, it would be Smith. I should have logged on as Robbins. That's silly. So let me log in as Robbins this time, just to prove the point. View document, find everything. I can now see secret information. Okay, so that's because the classification access profile is now not enabled. So we can view the settings. It is not enabled, it's switched off. Okay, so let's go back on test database as system, and this time I want to show you maintain the caveat profiles. It's the same idea, but this time we're talking about caveats, and these are just test ones that I've just put in by default. So we go caveat access profile 1 means that it cannot see anything, and what we'll say here, we can only see UK eyes only for caveat AP1. Okay, right, caveat AP1. We'll go to users now. We'll say this is the user we want to use again, Robbins. Okay, so we'll edit the user Robbins, and this time his access profile is going to be AP1, which means he can only see confidential and below, and he can also only see caveats that are UK eyes only or nothing. Okay, and we'll update that. Okay, so there's Robbins set. So what we'll do now, we'll log off and log on again. This time I'll log in as Robbins. Okay, and this time I'll try and view information again, and again you're seeing everything at the moment because the access profiles have been disabled, which is something you need to watch out for, as I've just missed it there myself. Okay, now in order to correct that, we log in as system again. Okay, go to configuration settings, and we enable the access profiles, save them. Okay, and then we log in as Robbins again. Oops, let's just correct that. Log in as Robbins again, invalid password, fantastic. Robbins, okay, and this time view information, view everything. Okay, so now the classification access profile is active, and if we select them all, okay, we can see UK eyes only, and that's all we can see. Okay, that's all we can see, UK eyes only, because that is the active profile. Okay, so let me just log in as system again and set those back. Edit user Robbins, we'll take those off, make them blank. Okay, update, update. Okay, and there you go. So that's the security mechanisms that you can employ within PDR Professional to restrict what your users can do and cannot do, but also what the data that your users can see and cannot see.